In 2025, former President Donald Trump is shaking the world again, this time with a controversial move to restrict or remove immigration from 7 Asian countries. From hidden deportations to total bans, the impact is massive and emotional. Families are torn apart, visas denied, and entire communities pushed to the edge. But why these countries? What's really happening behind the scenes? This video reveals the full list, and the shocking truth you're not hearing in the headlines. Number 7. Cambodia. Cambodia was categorized under the yellow tier in Trump's travel policy update, meaning it faced warnings and potential restrictions. While no total ban was placed, the U.S. government urged Cambodia to enhance its information-sharing systems. Officials cited inadequate passport security, weak vetting procedures, and limited cooperation with American agencies. Cambodian nationals applying for U.S. visas began experiencing longer wait times and more intense questioning. The policy affected student, tourist, and family visa categories. Cambodian officials were given a grace period to comply with U.S. security standards. Failure to do so could have escalated the country's status to orange or red. Human rights advocates feared this would lead to further isolation. The Cambodian American community watched developments closely. Many had family in Cambodia and worried about potential bans. Community leaders organized outreach programs to educate immigrants about their rights. Meanwhile, Cambodia's government pledged to improve document verification systems. U.S. authorities insisted that these were preventive measures, not punishments. Still, critics argued that Cambodia's inclusion reflected geopolitical bias rather than real threats. Immigration experts warned that yellow-tier countries often face creeping restrictions. The fate of Cambodia's standing now depends on compliance and diplomacy. For many, the uncertainty remains unsettling. Number 6. Vietnam. Vietnam was not officially listed in the red or orange tiers, but reports emerged that Vietnamese nationals were among those quietly affected by Trump's immigration enforcement. In early 2025, human rights groups reported that Vietnamese migrants were being deported to third countries like South Sudan. This practice caused widespread outrage and raised legal concerns. Deporting migrants to nations they had never lived in, especially conflict zones, was seen as unethical and unlawful. U.S. courts began to question whether these actions violated international agreements. Many of the deported individuals were longtime U.S. residents with minor legal infractions. Vietnam itself reportedly refused to accept some deportees back, complicating the process. This led to a disturbing workaround that placed human lives at risk. The Vietnamese American community was alarmed by these developments. Some lawmakers called for congressional investigations. Advocacy groups urged the administration to halt removals and reconsider its deportation protocols. Vietnam's government remained mostly silent, perhaps to avoid political conflict. Legal challenges were filed, and some deportations were temporarily suspended. Still, fear spread among Vietnamese families. The incident highlighted gaps in U.S. immigration enforcement and due process. Though Vietnam was not formally banned, it was deeply impacted by behind-the-scenes policies. Number 5. Pakistan. Pakistan was added to the orange tier and faced partial immigration restrictions under Trump's new executive order. This decision was largely motivated by U.S. concerns over terrorism, border control, and inconsistent security cooperation. Pakistan has long been seen as a complex ally, critical in some U.S. missions but also a source of concern for terrorist financing and militant groups. Under the new policy, Pakistani nationals faced tighter background checks and delays in visa approvals. Family reunification, student visas, and even business travel were all affected. Some categories of immigration were paused altogether. Pakistani Americans expressed disappointment and fear for their relatives. Many were U.S. citizens hoping to bring over spouses, parents, or children. The Pakistani government condemned the policy as discriminatory. Community leaders argued that such actions unfairly painted all Pakistanis with one brush. Legal organizations prepared lawsuits claiming violations of civil rights. The U.S. administration maintained that the restrictions were essential for public safety. While Pakistan promised to improve data-sharing standards, the ban was not reversed. Analysts warned this move could harm diplomatic ties and counter-terrorism cooperation. The emotional toll on affected families was significant. Even those who had lived in the U.S. for years felt alienated and uncertain about their future. Number 4. Myanmar. Myanmar, also known as Burma, was placed under the orange tier in Trump's Executive Order 14161, which introduced partial U.S. immigration restrictions. The move followed heightened concerns about the country's political instability and human rights abuses. After the 2021 military coup, the government of Myanmar was led by generals widely condemned for oppression and violence. The U.S. cited these conditions as threats to international cooperation and security. As a result, Myanmar citizens faced tighter visa scrutiny, particularly for work, study, and family-based immigration. The policy also affected asylum seekers escaping political persecution. Many Burmese Americans voiced concern over family members trapped in a collapsing system. Humanitarian groups condemned the U.S. for restricting aid access. Critics argued that the ban punished victims of dictatorship instead of supporting them. International legal experts called the policy short-sighted and inhumane. Myanmar's inclusion on the list sparked protests in American cities with large Burmese communities. The U.S. administration countered that it was safeguarding borders and data systems. The Burmese military government made no formal response. Analysts noted the ban reflected Washington's wider disengagement with Southeast Asia. The result was increased isolation for a nation already in crisis. Hope for refugee resettlement dimmed significantly under this policy. Number 3. Laos. Laos, a landlocked Southeast Asian country, was assigned to the orange tier, triggering partial travel restrictions. Under these rules, certain visa categories were denied, including work and diversity visas. Visitors from Laos faced more intensive background checks and longer processing times. The U.S. cited Laos' inadequate identity documentation systems as a key issue. Unlike many countries, Laos does not have biometric passports or consistent records. This made it difficult for U.S. agencies to verify identities and screen for risks. While Laos has no significant record of extremism, the Trump administration emphasized procedural standards. Lao students and professionals felt the impact of these restrictions firsthand. Many applicants reported sudden denials without detailed explanation. Immigration attorneys raised concerns about transparency and due process. Critics argued that the U.S. used overly broad criteria. Families in the U.S. with Laotian heritage expressed fear and uncertainty. Educational exchange programs saw a drop in Laotian participation. The Lao government expressed disappointment but avoided direct confrontation. International observers noted that Laos was likely caught in a geopolitical policy trend. The administration insisted the goal was improved compliance, not punishment. Still, the human cost of the policy was clear to many. Number 2. Bhutan. Bhutan was another Asian nation added to the red tier in Trump's Executive Order 14161. Despite being a peaceful and isolated Himalayan country, it faced a total U.S. entry ban. The main concern cited by the U.S. was Bhutan's limited cooperation with international information sharing agreements. Bhutan lacks advanced digital identity systems, which made vetting applicants difficult. While Bhutan has no known terrorist activity, the lack of transparency led to strict measures. The ban drew significant backlash from human rights groups. Bhutanese Nepali refugees in the U.S. were among those most affected. Many had fled ethnic cleansing in the 1990s and settled in the U.S. through refugee programs. Under this policy, some were forced into stateless limbo. Others were at risk of deportation back to camps in Nepal. The policy was seen as an overreach by many analysts. They argued that Bhutan's inclusion was based more on technical capacity than real threat. The Bhutanese government made little public comment. Advocacy groups demanded case-by-case review rather than blanket restrictions. Critics said the ban lacked empathy and understanding. Despite petitions and protests, the restrictions remained in place. The administration defended the policy as a preventive measure. Number 1. Afghanistan. In 2025, Afghanistan was placed under the red tier by the Trump administration, resulting in a total ban on entry into the United States. This action stemmed from persistent concerns about terrorism, instability, and the Taliban-led government's lack of cooperation with international security protocols. The U.S. government expressed that Afghanistan failed to provide reliable identity verification for its citizens. In addition, intelligence reports flagged the nation as a high-risk source of extremist threats. The ban affected not only immigrants but also students, workers, and visitors. Human rights advocates criticized the move, saying it punished ordinary citizens escaping conflict. The decision also strained relations with humanitarian organizations. Thousands of Afghans with pending asylum or visa applications faced indefinite delays or rejections. Families were separated, and many were left in dangerous conditions. American allies from past military missions also faced challenges. Veterans who had worked with Afghan translators expressed outrage. The policy drew legal challenges, but enforcement continued. Critics warned it violated international asylum laws. Still, the administration maintained that national security was the top priority, regardless of past alliances or circumstances. I hope you like this meaningful video. Take care. Goodbye.